Is murder hoboing really a problem in Dungeons and Dragons games? The majority of us actually say no. But what does murder hoboing really mean, and how can it affect your game at home? Let's dive into it. So the idea of a murder hobo is that you're having a conversation with an NPC, and one of the players takes out a knife and sticks it in the NPC and robs them. It's a very video game-esque style of playing. This has been a problem since Dungeons and Dragons first came around, to the idea and extent that yes, it does happen. But there's something else that goes into this, is that ever since video games were a thing, there is no consequence for killing someone, and the game sets it up that way. Meaning that as a player, not a character, I know that I can kill someone, clean up the body, and not have problems associated with it. In most home games, this does not happen that often. The reality is, in most home games, this doesn't happen that often. Most of us are in understanding trying to play the same game. Where we really see this occur is public games. Games where you'll have a public dungeon master and a group of people that get together that don't know each other are doing a one-shot or doing a campaign at a local game shop or going to conventions. And usually what happens is one person does it and then everyone kind of joins along. So is it a problem? Well, it depends. Some games lean towards murder hoboing. I have a very succinct rule that if murder hoboing is happening and your players are killing random NPCs just by mating them so they can loot and rob, you're allowing that as a dungeon master. This is a very controversial statement, but what I mean by this, in the reality of the greater scheme of things, is that there are no consequences for it, right? If you just go and murder someone in my game, someone is going to see it, hear it, know it. There are magical spells, there are magical cops that will hunt you down and find out that you're the ones that are doing these things. I play a high fantasy game where you are going to be found, and then there are bounties going to be put on your heads. Bandits exist for a reason. Rumors get started. Eventually, someone's going to figure out that it's your party going around and murdering everybody, and there are consequences to that. A lot of times, the players don't like those consequences, as they can no longer buy stuff. They get ousted for kingdoms. They become the bad guys, and it derails the entire campaign. I will share a story, though. There was one player I had, one time in my history of dungeon mastering, where I actually had a murder hoboing problem. One player thought it was funny and killed someone. I said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Because I play a very sandbox style game. They're like, "Absolutely." And then the other players went along with it. And then it happened again. But then I, as the dungeon master, started having people track them down. Magic initiates from the schools started hunting down these bandits that were just murdering everybody. And all of a sudden, they were the ones that were chased. Eventually, they went down in a blaze of glory, defending themselves against the Dragon Knights of the Empire. They died. It was a complete TPK, but it was about 12 to 13 sessions, and those bandits went down in legend. What's thing is they didn't go legend is a good reason. They were serial killers and murderers. It's the only really evil campaign that I've ever played, and it was all by accident because I did not allow the murder hoboing to occur without natural consequences. That happened once. Now, if murder hoboing is a problem, there are ways you can deal with it. Yes, there are. Number one is directly. If someone just randomly attacks an NPC, I would stop the game. I'd be like, hold on a second. So I understand that you are attacking the NPC. You're going to kill the NPC. Talk to me a little bit about this. This is not the kind of game I play. There are consequences for doing this kind of thing. It's called murder. Yes, this is a game, but in my role-playing games, society has rules and regulations. You just don't go around killing people. So explain this to me a little bit, why your character is doing that, because that's a very evil deed, and I don't play evil games. Right? That's just kind of the fact of my games. I have that very direct conversation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on your game, your specific table. Sometimes murder hoboing isn't a problem because it is an evil game and you do have a group of bad guys. But as a dungeon master, if your players are going around just killing people and it bothers you, you need to have a conversation with them directly. Being a murder hobo means that player wants something out of the game they're not getting. There's something wrong with the game. Not you as a dungeon master, with the game. They're looking for something that's not provided in the role-playing experience that you're giving them, and that's satisfying that in some way. We have to look at the fact that murder hobo isn't a natural outcome. It's not a consequence. It doesn't just naturally happen. A player is looking for something. Some people are frustrated, have problems, and they're trying to take their frustration out in a certain way, and they get a satisfaction out of it. I know that sounds sick and harsh, but there's some reality there. People are angry. People are in dire straits, and sometimes they need a way to take out their frustration, and a fantasy mythical world does that for them. We'd see that in video games. We see that at going to the gym. We see that in martial arts practice, jiu-jitsu practice. We see that in all sorts of things in our society. We are trying to get out our frustrations. It happens in the dungeon mastering table as well. And sometimes players need that. Now, if a player just wants to kill things, you can, as a dungeon master, say, listen, the NPC is not the way to do that. I can provide you with things to go out and hack and slash. We can absolutely do that. That is a fun thing for me to do. But in the end, if you really have a murder hobo problem, then you need to find out why to begin with. And as a dungeon master, this should be something that's talked about the moment it starts to happen, because there's no reason any of your characters should just murder that armor merchant. They should murder the priest. They should kill the person on the side of the street they're talking to, or should just walk in and just completely kill everything. If you're setting up a combat encounter that's with bandits and your players walk in and just kill them, and you have a problem with that as a dungeon master, that's not murder hoboing. You have set up an expectation that combat is the resolution. And that's an okay gameplay style to have. I like very clear-cut bad guys. We're going to go in, we're going to kill the earth elementals, ta-da. I also like the varied approach, meaning, hey, we're going to go in, why are these earth elementals acting like this? Are they aggravated? Is something going on? Doing more research, finding out that it's actually these bad guys over here, but all they're trying to do is get food, so we can actually bring them food. There's nothing wrong with that kind of role-playing as well. Remember, if you don't communicate on your table, you will have murder hobo problems. All a murder hobo problem is a lack of communication between the players trying to play a certain type of game, a dungeon master trying to play a certain game, and people being on different pages. So if it is a problem, talk to your players directly. And if your players come back with any kind of sass or nastiness, you have the wrong player at the table. And if you as a player are a murder hobo and someone questions you just killing everyone and you become upset, you are the problem. There is no other way of looking at this. Now, if someone is questioning you and you don't think you're doing it, have that conversation. In the end, murder hoboing is all about expectations, conversations, and consequences in game. Because trust me, if you set the right consequences in game, there'll be no more murder hoboing. Because as a dungeon master, you can throw anything you want at your players. Remember that. That's one of the reasons why in video games, the NPCs are incredibly high level. Not saying I recommend doing that, but food for thought. As always, guys, we'll see you next time. Stick around. We got a little bit about Hero Soul coming up, a little bit different of a message now. And so I'm glad to see you. And as always, like, subscribe, hit the button, and we will see you when? We will see you next time. I'm not going to post a ton of stuff here on the YouTube channel about Hero Soul. I'm not. But what I am going to do is post a whole bunch of it on our Patreon. If you're a free member, be part of it. You will have access to Hero Soul. You'll get the PDFs as they're updated, as they get posted. You'll also have access to everything else. If you're a paid member, you're going to get behind the scenes videos and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, if you want a free version of Dungeons & Dragons that you can download for free, join Hero Soul and be part of the conversation. Don't like something that's in the rules? Speak your mind and let's have a conversation and see if we should change it or not. And in the end, you will download the free version of the PDF. And we're talking about a free, full version with monsters, new lore, new races, new ways of doing things, but all based upon the Creative Commons license. You can take Hero Soul and smack it right dab in 5th edition, and it will function just fine. So join us with our Patreon and Hero Soul and let your voice be heard in the creation. This is not a Kickstarter. I don't care. We will eventually have a printed book. We'll get there. But as a community, let's create this game together. Join us and let's start our journey with Hero Soul. I need some help. I'm by myself. I need people to do Discord. I need people to do all that kind of stuff. But right now, I swear to God, I just saw something behind that tree as it's getting dark out here. So I'm going to leave. Join us at the Patreon. Let's do some Hero Soul development. And let's have a free version of Dungeons & Dragons, which is owned by the community. See you then. As always, next time. Yay!